Like, for example, I don't know Trump, but Trump's a dick. You know what I mean? Like, just the way he treats people, the way he manipulates people, the way he judges people.
The Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I don't think many people actually did research about that. They just see the fact that Israel is sort of, imposing their large military on it. And
I feel like even if people don't really mean to be prejudiced nowadays, it's just sort of a human
I think that it is something that happens a lot in society and often goes unnoticed.
Is everyone prejudiced?
Define prejudice.
So the Google definition of it would be that someone makes an opinion on something with a lack of experience or evidence behind it. So the way Google would describe it is someone having an opinion on something or someone based off of a lack of experience or without a lack of experience or knowledge on that topic. So
for me, prejudice is like an attitude towards someone without having evidence, facts, or experience.
Well, I feel like everyone is raised a certain way, and depending on the environment that you grow up in, it could become something of innately prejudiced. I think it really just depends on the environment that a child can grow up with and their parents' views as well. Because, a child won't always see eye to eye with their parents until something like they grow into adulthood, I guess.
There's a lot of prejudice in human beings.
So everyone's prejudiced to a degree.
To a degree. I wouldn't say everyone's prejudiced. I would say to a degree. There we go.
I guess in a way, a lot of people are prejudiced in terms of when kids are younger, right? They grow up in different kind of households, different kind of backgrounds. So we all grow up learning different things. Maybe some people believe that, it's good to do this. Some people say otherwise. But I feel like as we grow older, we kind of all when we're born or when we're growing up, we're kind of all separate, right? But when we get into school, moving into high school, into workplaces, and then you start learning about your environment, I think it kind of all comes together. But there's always going to be that kind of outcast of people that are nah, that's not good, or nah, this, or there's always going to be someone that's going to counteract your opinion. So I feel like prejudice was kind of in all of us, but it's not kind of what defines everyone,
Our first instinct as a human being is to judge.
Yeah.
But a part of me wants to say no, because obviously I want humanity to be good. But for the most part, I'd say yes.
for the most part, I think most people are, definitely. Especially on social media, you see a large group of people post about something or repost on their story, and all of a sudden people just follow that because they think, that is what's right, that is what's okay, that is what's the best thing to follow, when they don't really know much about it.
I feel like even if people don't really mean to be prejudiced nowadays, it's just sort of a human, you measure a character just by looking at them. You judge someone based on their clothes, or maybe how they look, how their hair is cut, if they have tattoos. And I feel like it's just something that's kind of hard to help.
I think when someone is born, they don't have that prejudice born into them, but it's definitely shaped into their behavior as they grow up by just, the environment they're around. If their parents have prejudices, and just media and pop culture all have tones of it in it, and I believe that really influences and gets put into us as we grow up.
I look at something and I innately just make my opinions based on that right away. Yeah. I don't do more research, that's my opinion on it. And it's solidified pretty much. Till someone proves me wrong and I'm like, okay, this is my new opinion. So you think that's just in our nature to look at one thing and base an opinion off that one thing?
For most people, yes, I do believe so. What's more sexier? A 30-second Instagram reel that tells you what's happening, or a full 45 to an hour documentary of what's actually happening that's non-biased, etc., etc. It's much easier and it's much more sexier to everyone to look at, a 30-second Instagram reel or TikTok about some political issue or some form of issue and judge it based on that. Most people are not willing to do an hour of research at all. So yeah, I'd say yeah.
No, of course. Okay, so we agree that everyone's prejudiced to an extent, right? Yep. So you would say you're also prejudiced?
I would definitely say that. I have so many experiences that I've judged people off lack of experience, lack of education, but I have changed for the better to not do that. You know what I mean?
What cause, like, when do you think someone that's prejudiced and someone that does this realizes this, or do you think it's an experience that they learn, like, oh shoot, I'm doing this?
I think it's an ongoing thing that once a big, like, how do I say this? A big
Event
incident
happens?
happens,
Yeah.
they're gonna be like, oh shoot, I was doing this. But if it's like tiny little everyday thing, like, oh, you look bad today, oh, your skin color's not mine, right?
Yeah.
It's a thing that's just they're doing. They don't really realize it. It's like brushing your teeth. You just do it. You know what I mean?
So how did you overcome that hurdle, or like get past that hurdle of like constantly judging people based off a lack of opinion on them?
I would say the fact that I was bullied, the fact that I understood what it was like to be in a position where you were not accepted to be who you are.
Yeah.
So I kind of reflect that to not do it. You know what I mean?
I understand.
So I take people's experiences and turn them into good to what not to do. You know what I mean?
So we discussed and we talked and agreed upon how everyone's to a degree prejudiced, right?
Yes.
Now, you would say then that by that logic, you and I would also be prejudiced. Is that something you have like concerned yourself with, like something that's been a problem in your life and something you've dealt upon, or is that something you've never really thought of?
It's something that I have been dealing with lately. Like, I really try my best to look at both sides because I've always been taught there's always another side to another story. There's always a bad guy to someone's story, but yeah, it's been something that I have been looking at recently. Anytime I have an opinion on something, I always make sure to check the opposite side to see what's happening, just to make sure, hey, am I wrong or am I just completely blinded or whatever is possible, right? I mean, I always try to look at what has been happening on the opposite side.
So then, do you think that someone can grow up in an environment where prejudice is almost non-existent, where they grow not to judge someone based off their opinion right away?
That's a tough one. I feel like everyone sort of has an opinion either way, and what we should be doing is trying to understand and accept each other's opinions instead of trying to put other people down for having an opinion.
So, have you ever experienced prejudice towards yourself, where you've been judged based on a lack of opinion on you?
Yes, I feel so, but I think it just comes down to what you want to be educated on, and if you don't have some sort of expertise in some sort of subjects, I don't feel like you should be put down because you're not necessarily interested in that.
Most definitely the environment we are with, they can influence it. It can, like, okay, so there's prejudice, there's discrimination, and there's being like above that, which is being racism. Yeah, we can be influenced by the environment, but obviously we can control it. Like, even though we were born with it, we can still like manage our, let's say, pathways of our brain, like how we think to not go on that limit.
So then, you think there's an environment out there where a kid could grow up and prejudice is almost non-existent?
Yeah, pretty much. I don't know if this is an appropriate example, but it's just an example otherwise. But like kids growing up in maybe like foster homes or kids growing up in like shelters, stuff like that, they all kind of grow up in the same way. So like in that kind of group of people, everyone kind of grows up with the same opinion where it's kind of just a safe space, because that's what shelters are. That's what foster homes are for, foster care. Yeah, that's kind of one of the situations where I feel like prejudice is kind of non-existent.
Okay.
I say yeah, because you know how prejudice is, everyone has it. So for me, as I experienced something like that, the way how I just dealt with it's just like, you know, that's how it's gonna be. Everyone's gonna think that they're above you and stuff like that. So you just gotta accept it, but at the same time, for yourself, since you're aware that like prejudice is like a thing that you have as well, you can also control your limits and stuff like that.
Obviously, you're going to have an opinion on someone because of what they think as well. But I try not to let that cloud my judgment on somebody, because I like to judge off of character more than someone's, say, like religious views or political views as well.
So we talked about how it's an environmental factor rather than human nature. What type of environment do you think would allow a kid to grow up where they wouldn't have this as a problem or as a concern?
I think just having parents that are really accepting, maybe some that are open to other views and stuff like that. I guess being open-minded is really one of the key concepts that we should be teaching our children nowadays, and being accepting is just as important.
Would you blame the people that are prejudiced to someone based off their skin color? Would you blame them or their environment?
I can't say. I think I blame both. Honestly, I mean, I can't just say it's all their fault, because if you're raised in an environment that eventually creates you or just sort of like shapes you to that way, I can't exactly blame you 100%. But then again, you're also the person taking action for it.
Yes, I think that prejudice can spread through families. Of course, parent opinions really affect children. So if a parent is shown to show prejudice to show negative feelings towards someone, then the child might pick up on that and also make an opinion out of it.
Do you think our current society is moving away or actually closer to this topic of conversation we're having today?
I feel like it's sort of like staying frozen instead of like moving towards one direction or the other. Like they're trying to move it away from being prejudiced, but I feel like it's just sort of frozen.
Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I would say it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I don't know exactly how much you can help trying to stop people from judging just by looks.
Did we miss anything? Is there anything else you want to say?
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure as always. Thank you.
Do you think that prejudice is becoming more known?
I definitely think it is. I think now we see a lot more people who have a lot of influence, especially on the internet, talking about it and bringing awareness to it, which I think is great.